Hey guys, tonight we're heading to a land of palm shadows and flickering oil lamps, where dreams weren't just nonsense from a late-night falafel binge, but messages from the gods themselves. You lie down in a reed-woven bed inside an ancient Egyptian mud-brick house, and the scent of lotus oil mingles with the warmth of the desert air. You've had a long day building a pyramid or arguing with your goat. You close your eyes and now the gods get to have a turn. In this world, dreams are more than nighttime brain doodles. They're omens, instructions, sometimes punishments, and often so weird that you need a trained professional to explain why you just dreamed of your left toe arguing with a heron. Spoiler, it means trouble with taxes. Probably. You're not just sleeping tonight. You're slipping into a 3,000-year-old civilization that took dreams so seriously. They wrote a manual, a literal papyrus-bound how-to guide on interpreting every bizarre symbol that wandered into your subconscious. And yes, it includes what it means if you dream about eating crocodile meat. You probably won't survive this, but only because dream crocodile is no joke. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing our little dream caravan stretch across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin, of course, with a scroll. Or rather, the scroll one carefully tucked away in the library of an ancient temple, likely scrawled in hieratic script on yellowing papyrus and stored beside dried lotus blossoms and a few beetles who take their job way too seriously. It's referred to today as the Ancient Egyptian Dream Manual, or the Book of Dreams, depending on who's translating. This wasn't bedtime poetry. It was a catalog, a practical, rather matter-of-fact list of dream symbols and what they meant. Written during the 19th dynasty, sometime around 1300 BCE. Scholars think it was compiled by a priest or a scribe, someone who lived and breathed ink, sand, and the occasional divine headache. Each entry in the manual begins with the phrase, "If a man sees himself," followed by a dream scenario and its interpretation. Some are positive if a man sees himself eating crocodile meat. Good news, he'll be triumphant over his enemies. Other entries, not so cheerful. Dreaming of walking backward that might mean you're doomed to never find your way forward in life. Dreaming of wearing white, depending on the context, could mean joy or death. Comforting. Historians still argue whether the manual was meant for public use, or if it stayed within the realm of elite priesthood. Some believe it was recited aloud in temples to supplicants seeking answers. Others think it might have served more like a reference guide, consulted by trained interpreters who specialized in the delicate business of telling people what their dreams did or did not mean. What's fascinating is how matter-of-fact it all is. There's little drama in the writing style. It doesn't wax poetic or hedge its guesses. The book doesn't say, well, if you dream of fighting a bull, it might mean you're courageous or maybe lactose intolerant. No, it says, if a man sees himself fighting a bull good, it means he will conquer adversity. Full stop. And they didn't think dreams just randomly happened either. Oh no. Dreams were seen as windows into divine realms, ways that gods, spirits, ancestors, and other non-rent-paying guests in your head could drop by and leave a note. A well-timed dream was basically a DM from the other side. Sometimes the gods even played roles inside the dream's Thoth. The ibis-headed god of wisdom was said to appear bearing scrolls. Hathor might show up to deliver a vision of fertility or music. Occasionally, you'd dream of an animal. And that animal was absolutely not just an animal. A lion danger, a snake double danger, a cow. Depends if she speaks to you. If she does, maybe drink less lotus wine before bed. And that's the core of it, meaning in chaos. Egyptians believed dreams weren't a mess. They were structured, symbolic, decipherable. So naturally, they started organizing them like dream librarians on a cosmic shift. The dream manual itself is divided by good dreams and bad dreams, with little sugarcoating. Each entry comes with a verdict, good, bad. Or you probably need to cleanse yourself with incense and sleep facing north. There are dreams where you're given food. Good. You will be provided for. Dreams where your teeth fall out. Bad. You may lose family. Dreaming of a crocodile hugging you extra bad. Crocodiles are never cuddly in dreams or otherwise. One fringe theory, that some of the weirdest entries in the manual were jokes, a form of priestly inside humor, or training exercises. For example, there's an entry that reads, "If a man sees himself drinking beer and getting drunk good, he will be happy." Scholars still debate whether that's literal or just sarcasm preserved for eternity. And what about the person writing this manual? Probably a high-ranking priest or temple scribe, working in a dimly lit chamber with reed pens and a deep sense of cosmic responsibility. He wasn't just jotting down dreams like a bored barista writing haikus. He was creating a roadmap of the human psyche. At a time when the psyche was believed to extend far beyond the body and well into the divine, it's almost romantic in a dusty sort of way. You, the sleeper, were considered a vessel, a temporary stage where gods could perform, symbols could dance, and messages could be whispered across the veil of consciousness. The scribe? He was your interpreter, your guide, the one who could translate that vision of your own hands turning into birds into something more useful than just nightmare fuel. And so, tonight, as your own eyes begin to flutter a little, remember somewhere in ancient Egypt, someone once dreamed a lion was singing opera in a fig tree, and someone else took that seriously enough to write it down. You never know what might mean something. Not even now. You squint under the flickering oil lamp as the scribe sharpens his reed pen with a chip of flint. He doesn't rush. Each stroke is deliberate, like he's about to draft the cosmic recipe for dream soup. He dips the pen into a little pot of ink made from soot and Nile water and gently begins the next line of the dream manual, writing not for himself, but for all the half-asleep souls who will stumble in needing help, deciphering why they dreamed of juggling ears of barley in a crocodile's bathhouse. Because in ancient Egypt, decoding dreams was a job, a respected one, somewhere between a librarian, a psychiatrist, and a wizard. These weren't people guessing wildly with a dramatic flair and eyeshadow, okay? Well, they did wear eyeliner, but that's just normal in ancient Egypt. Dream interpreters were often temple scribes or priests, trained in both the spiritual and administrative sides of life. They could read, write, invoke the gods, and balance the temple inventory while telling you what it meant if you dreamed about being turned into a fish. And they had tools, not just scrolls. If you were wealthy or desperate, you might bring your dream to a temple and have it interpreted through a little performance. The scribe might consult figurines, amulets, or divination bowls, murmuring prayers while drawing symbols in sand or water. And of course, they had access to the dream manual, which by now is sounding less like a bedtime curiosity and more like ancient Egypt's version of Google Translate for the subconscious. Some dream interpreters worked directly with the high priests of Serapis, Thoth, or Isis, gods associated with magic, knowledge, or dreams themselves. Others functioned more locally, giving out interpretations like fortune cookies with a little more scorpion imagery. Either way, the interpreter had to walk a fine line, part spiritual mediator, part psychologist, and part careful observer of just how terrified you looked when describing your dream. Dreamers usually came in with very specific concerns, like, I dreamed my left hand grew feathers, and then my uncle sneezed fire. Does that mean my cousin is plotting against me? To which the scribe would probably nod sagely, scratch his chin, and say, "Ah yes, that's a classic. Very common around flood season." The dream interpreter's job was not just to explain what your dream meant, but to translate the divine logic of it. Because dreams weren't nonsense. They were layered, structured, even coded. A crocodile wasn't just a crocodile. It might symbolize divine punishment, protection, fertility, or revenge depending on what it was doing and who was dreaming it. Historians still debate how standardized these interpretations were. Was there one grand manual passed from temple to temple? Or did each region and maybe even each interpreter create their own version? Some believe the dream scrolls were adaptable, with interpretations updated over time like a holy FAQ page. Others think the dream manual was more ceremonial, meant to reinforce religious authority rather than provide actual medical-grade sleep advice. One fascinating tidbit: some temples used dream incubation chambers, small rooms with high walls, minimal light, and heavy scent. You'd sleep there, hoping for a divine dream. When you awoke, a scribe would help record and interpret what you saw. Kind of like booking a therapy appointment with a heavy focus on your REM cycle. And yes, you'd get incense, chanting, and maybe even a small snack. The ancient Egyptian version of a dream retreat. But let's not pretend dream interpretation was all lofty mysticism. There were politics and rivalries. Imagine a priest interpreting a nobleman's dream and saying, "You dreamt of falling from a palm tree. Ah yes, that means your status will fall." Dangerous, especially if the nobleman's brother happens to be funding your temple repairs. A few dream interpreters likely adjusted their readings to suit whoever was listening. A sort of divine spin doctoring. One fringe tale mentions a scribe who interpreted every dream as a sign of great fortune, and ended up so popular that he was gifted a cow, 2 wives, and his own personal boat. There's no way to verify this, but honestly, it tracks. There's also evidence that some scribes kept personal dream journals, scrolls not for public use but private analysis. These would contain details from their own dreams or dreams of those they trusted, and might include evolving interpretations, rituals that worked particularly well, or notes on strange new symbols. You picture one such scribe now old, a little grumpy, ink stains on his robe, muttering about how back in his day, dreams made sense and didn't involve talking fish with papyrus hats. He rolls his eyes at the younger scribes who are too quick to interpret a scorpion dream as anything other than you're about to have a bad week. But even the best interpreter knows one thing: dreams are slippery. They resist neat explanations. A symbol might mean one thing to one person and the opposite to another. Dreaming of flying could mean spiritual ascension or an upcoming betrayal. It depends on what you were wearing, who was watching, and whether the moon was waxing, waning, or just being dramatic. Which is why the interpreters didn't work in isolation. They consulted the stars, the lunar calendar, the current state of the Nile. Did it flood early that might affect the reading? Is there political unrest in Thebes? That dream about a cracked mirror might suddenly be urgent. Everything in Egypt was connected. Heaven and earth, dream and waking, symbol and event. So when you came into the temple, rubbing sleep from your eyes, carrying a dream that felt like it might mean something, you weren't dismissed. You were honored. because your mind had just been touched by something bigger than you. And the scribe, he wasn't just a clerk. He was your guide across the veil. Even if he also charged a small fee, after all, papyrus wasn't cheap. You're walking through a dream, and nothing makes sense. Not because it's chaotic, but because it's structured too precisely. The crocodile is wearing a wig. A cow is juggling scarabs. There's a scribe, he looks suspiciously like your cousin baking bread in a papyrus scroll. And somehow, you just know you're supposed to marry a river. When you wake up, your heart is racing. Was it a sign A warning? A cosmic comedy routine? Time to consult the manual. Because the ancient Egyptian dream book our star tonight wasn't vague, it didn't say you might experience good fortune, or danger could befall you unless Mercury turns around and apologizes. No. It offered specific symbols and direct interpretations, as if your dream came with its own footnotes. If a man sees himself eating crocodile meat, it is good. It means he will overcome his enemies. Right, so the crocodile was lunch, not judgment. If a man sees himself catching a big fish, it is good. It means wealth is coming. But if the fish is talking to you, or dancing, or has your brother's face, things get murky. If a man sees himself looking into a deep well, it is bad. It means he is facing something hidden. Cryptic, sure. But if you dreamed of a well after, say, burying a stolen amulet in your neighbor's yard, you might want to take that as a sign. The dream manual is full of these one-liners. Many seem simple, even charming. Dreaming of donning white clothes? Good. Being chased by a snake? Bad. Hearing music in your dream? Good. Unless the music is played by the dead, that's a whole other scroll. What's remarkable is how often animals appear. Cats, snakes, crocodiles, bulls, your standard Egyptian dream zoo. And each one came with symbolic baggage. Cats, for example, weren't just pets lounging under sunbeams and judging you silently. In dreams, cats could represent protection, domestic stability, or in some readings, mischief and betrayal, depending on how they acted. If you dreamed of a cat eating a mouse, that might be justice served. If you dreamed of a mouse eating a cat, buckle up. That's a reversal of natural order. In Egyptian logic, order, yas mahat, and mahat was sacred. A dream like that could suggest chaos creeping into your household, maybe even political upheaval. Then there's the crocodile, ever present and never cuddly. Most dream manuals include multiple crocodile entries, and none of them are chill. Fighting a crocodile and winning good victory. Seeing a crocodile swimming near you. Bad danger is lurking. Being eaten by one. Very bad. Also, possibly obvious. But here's where things get fun. Some interpretations were deeply, hilariously specific. If a man sees himself drinking warm beer, it is bad. He will be ill. Well, yes, even in waking life. Warm beer is suspect. If a man dreams of putting his head into a pot, it is bad. He will be brought low. Sure, but why is your head in a pot? If a man sees himself eating onions, it is good. His household will flourish. Finally, a dream that supports your late-night snack choices. Historians still argue whether the manual was based on actual reports, collected dream anecdotes from real people, or if the symbols were derived from religious texts and then retrofitted for interpretation. One theory suggests that scribes interviewed dreamers over years, compiled their stories, and recorded the most recurring themes. Another theory claims the entire thing was invented wholesale by temple scribes who got tired of answering the same dream questions over and over. So they wrote the equivalent of a mystical customer service guide. Either way, it worked. The symbols recur across regions and centuries. and so do the patterns. Dreams of birth almost always positive. Dreams of death, often symbolic of renewal, not doom. Dreams of eating food, usually good, especially if the food is familiar, fresh, or shared. Dreams of falling. That depends. Falling from a tree, maybe a loss of status, falling into water, cleansing or danger, falling upward into the stars. That's someone trying too hard to astral project. And then there's walking backwards. If a man sees himself walking backward, it is bad. He is returning to something he should leave behind. Deep. Right. The Egyptians didn't just catalog symbols, they philosophized through them. Even the layout of the manual, from what remains of it, seems structured in pairs: a good dream and its bad dream counterpart. Almost like a spiritual mirror. Each positive scenario flipped into a warning. Dreaming of building a house, good, you're establishing yourself. Dreaming of your house collapsing, bad, your foundations are weak. Dreaming of planting a tree, good, growth and legacy. Dreaming of cutting one down, bad, maybe don't do that. But some dreams were just strange. If a man dreams of being swallowed by a fish and spit back out, it is good. He will survive hardship, which is oddly Jonah adjacent, long before Jonah showed up. Coincidence, fringe scholars say, maybe not. One fringe interpretation even suggests some dreams were ritual instructions, cloaked in symbolism. A dream of walking through fire, for example, might be interpreted as a need for ritual cleansing. Dream of blood in the Nile, time to check the temple calendar, there may be a festival you're forgetting. And then there's the dreams of transformation, turning into a bird, or a fish, or a star. These were often seen as spiritual ascension dream signs that the soul was reaching toward the divine, maybe even practicing for the afterlife. You might wake up feeling changed, or if you were unlucky, you might wake up with a priest knocking at your door suggesting a donation to the temple just in case. Because when you dream like the gods, you'd better act like you respect them, and maybe bring an offering of onions, just to be safe. You're lying in a room that's just the right amount of cool. The clay walls have soaked in the heat of the day and now give it back like a sleepy exhale. The ceiling is palm thatch, gently whispering with the wind. And your bed is a woven mat that still smells faintly of reeds and river water. You're ready to sleep, but in ancient Egypt, that's when things get complicated. Because here, sleep is a ritual, a sacred transition, a practice that might involve oil, spells, specific angles of the stars, and maybe a strategically placed hippo figurine for good luck. Yes, really. Let's talk about how to sleep like a pharaoh. And before you say, oh, probably just with 5 servants and an air-conditioned pyramid, let me stop you. Because even pharaohs with their golden sandals and eyeliner budgets had to play by the spiritual rules of sleep. First rule, purity. No drifting into dreams covered in the spiritual equivalent of sand and bad vibes. Egyptians believed that dreams were a place where you might meet the gods or worse, be judged by them. So you'd bathe, cleanse, anoint yourself with lotus oil, or kaifai, a dreamy blend of honey, raisins, cinnamon, and wine that smelled like if a temple learned how to flirt. You'd possibly recite a protective spell, especially if you'd had bad dreams recently. Something simple. Maybe calling on Bez, the dwarf god with a lion face and the personal vibe of a protective older brother who's not afraid to body slam a demon at 3 Bez, by the way, often decorated beds and bedroom walls. You might have a little statue of him at your feet, warding off bad dreams and evil spirits. He was beloved, scruffy, and widely credited with keeping night terrors at bay. You wanted best nearby, especially if you'd just eaten questionable lentils and were about to sleep facing west, where the dead hang out. Next up, bed placement. Egyptians slept on slightly raised wooden frames, sometimes with headrests that look, frankly, like neck torture devices. They were curved wooden blocks designed to support the neck and keep the head elevated, a position believed to help align the soul and also maybe keep the bugs out of your ears. But there's more to it than ergonomics. The headrest had symbolic power. It lifted your head so your bait, one part of the soul, could safely leave the body during dreams. Because yes, they believed part of your soul left during sleep. Not in a dramatic soul flight way, but more like it drifted through the dream world, mingling with spirits, gods, and maybe that neighbor who died 2 years ago but still borrows your figs in dreams. So where should your bed face? East, ideally, toward the rising sun. The direction of rebirth, life, and divine favor. Facing west risky. That's where tombs faced. That's the land of the dead. Unless you had serious protective magic, you weren't supposed to snooze with your head pointing toward the underworld like a casual invitation. Historians still argue how strict this directional sleeping rule was. Some say it was reserved for priests and nobles. Others believe it was common knowledge, especially in temple compounds or for those undergoing dream incubation rituals. Speaking of which, let's say you weren't just sleeping to rest. Let's say you wanted a message, something divine, an answer to a problem, a hint about the harvest, guidance before confronting your very dramatic brother-in-law who thinks he should be pharaoh. What then? You'd visit a sleep temple or perform a home ritual to invite a visitation dream. This meant preparing your body, your bed, your room, and sometimes your food. You might fast, or eat certain herbs known to promote vivid dreams. Some included blue lotus, which wasn't just beautiful, it had psychoactive properties that could trigger altered states of consciousness. You might recite an invocation to Thoth, god of wisdom, and ask that your dreams be clear, decipherable, and not involve snakes and wigs. You might also leave out offerings bread, beer, fruit, or flowers either for the gods or for your own wandering ba, because no one likes dream travel on an empty stomach. Then you'd lie down, arms folded, eyes closed, and wait. And hope that the gods show up with something more useful than you will trip on a donkey tomorrow. One fringe theory even suggests certain temples used aromatic smoke, a mix of myrrh and desert herbs to induce dreamlike states before sleep, turning your entire bedroom into a very sacred, very fragrant vapor tent. And what if you weren't a priest or a noble? What if you were just a goose farmer with a sore back and a dream about your cousin turning into a flamingo? You still followed the basics: wash, anoint, sleep clean. You might whisper your dreams aloud the next morning to lock them in memory, a tradition believed to keep dreams from vanishing like river mist. Or you might visit the local scribe, explain what happened, and receive a simple interpretation. If a man dreams of birds nesting in his hands, it is good. He will gain wealth. Perfect. Even if you also woke up with actual feathers on you. Possibly unrelated. And don't forget the dream amulets. Some people wore charms to influence their dreams. Amulets shaped like ankhs, eyes, or scarabs. A tiny copper frog might help you see the truth in your sleep. A lapis lazuli falcon could draw divine visions. You'd wear it to bed, nestled in linen wrappings or sewn into your night tunic. Some were meant to protect, others to invite. One particularly odd charm, a carved ivory baboon with glowing red eyes, said to help keep demons out and ensure your dream stayed yours and not shared by an uninvited ghost or nosy ancestor. Because that could happen. If you weren't careful, And as you roll over now in your own modern bed, maybe with far fewer amulets and significantly less crocodile symbolism, you realize sleep might feel like rest. But to the ancient Egyptians, it was a gateway. So you'd better wash your hands, say your prayers, and lay very still. The gods are watching. The moment you slip into sleep, you aren't alone anymore. Not here, not in Egypt. You've cracked open the sky just enough to let someone or something step through. Because in the ancient Egyptian worldview, dreams weren't just products of your mind going off on one of its little tangents. They were visitations, messages, and sometimes full-blown spiritual encounters. And if you're very lucky or unlucky, a god might visit you directly. It's a strange feeling, dreaming of a god. You're not entirely sure where the boundaries are. Are you watching them? Are they watching you? Are they inside your head? Or are you inside theirs? The answer, according to the priests of Thoth, is yes. Let's start with Thoth. Ibis-headed, moon-crowned, god of wisdom, language, and scribes. He's the celestial librarian, keeper of truth, and a favorite among dreamers. If you saw Thoth in your dreams, it usually meant clarity was coming. You were being guided, or judged, or offered a peek at something forbidden but necessary, a cosmic cheat sheet you weren't supposed to read but kind of needed to. And Thoth didn't waste time. He didn't show up tossing flower petals and riddles. He'd appear holding a scroll, nod once, maybe tap his staff on the ground, and suddenly you'd wake up with the distinct feeling that you now understood something very important, if only you could remember what it was. Historians still argue whether Thoth was believed to actively visit dreamers, or whether he simply presided over the structure of dreams, like a divine moderator making sure your subconscious didn't get too rowdy. One theory claims that temples of Thoth were used specifically for dream incubation ritual spaces, where worshippers would sleep on sacred linen, surrounded by ink pots and miniature papyrus offerings. But Thoth wasn't the only nocturnal visitor. There's Bez, of course short, bearded, and terrifyingly charming. He's the god of protection, music, and spontaneous breakdancing, not officially, but that's the vibe. Bes appeared in dreams not as a bringer of messages, but as a bouncer chasing off evil spirits, bad omens, and the occasional nightmare that tried to slip through uninvited. If you dreamed of Bes laughing, dancing, or wielding his lion-headed knife, that was good. You'd been guarded. If you dreamed of not seeing Bez, and something heavy sat on your chest all night, you might need to get your amulets checked. In fact, Bes became so popular in household shrines that he eventually transcended temple boundaries. People scrawled his image on bedroom walls, drinking vessels, even cosmetic boxes. Because if you were going to apply eyeliner before bed, you wanted that little guy watching over you. But things got more intense with gods like Serapis. Serapis wasn't your typical ancient Egyptian deity. He was a fusion god, part Greek, part Egyptian, part mystery religion marketing campaign. By the time of the Ptolemies, Serapis had become a major figure in dream incubation. People traveled to his temples, particularly the massive one in Alexandria, not to pray with open eyes, but to sleep and receive revelations. These temples functioned almost like spiritual hotels. You'd fast, purify, lie down on sacred bedding, and await a dream visit. Sometimes Serapis would appear. Sometimes he'd send a representative. Sometimes nothing happened at all. And you just got a really good nap. One fringe tale speaks of a priest who dreamed of Serapis, handing him a blue flame. When he woke, the temple had caught fire, but only the outer walls burned, leaving the sacred chamber untouched. Was it a warning? A blessing? The priest was promoted either way. And then there's the delicate matter of Osiris, the god of death, resurrection, and everything in between. Dreaming of Osiris was rare, sacred, a little terrifying. If he appeared, it might mean you were being called to understand something about your destiny, your lineage, or your end. You didn't wake from a dream of Osiris refreshed. You woke changed. In many depictions, Osiris never speaks in dreams. He stands, holds his crook and flail, watches, maybe nods, maybe disappears before you can ask a question. Classic dream behavior. Dreams involving Isis, Hathor, or Sekhmet were also significant, but varied wildly in tone. Isis might offer protection or unveil a hidden truth. Hathor could bring visions of music, love, or revelry. Sekhmet, well, if she showed up in your dreams breathing fire and holding a lioness head over your bed, you'd best apologize for whatever it is you did. Dream appearances weren't just symbolic, they were messages with layers. For example, dreaming of Thoth in a library, knowledge is coming. Dreaming of Thoth in a storm, truth is hidden or about to strike. Dreaming of Bes sleeping, your protection is vulnerable. Dreaming of Serapis offering you water, healing insight, or a reminder to drink more fluids, divine hydration. And if you dreamt of multiple gods arguing, that's either a vision of divine conflict or a metaphor for your family reunion. One curious entry in the dream manual even mentions, if a man sees the gods gathered around his bed, good, he is favored. Unless, of course, they're frowning. Then you should probably confess something. Maybe to your priest, maybe to your mom. Sometimes gods appeared not to help, but to test. You might be offered a task in a dream: cross a river, answer a riddle, speak a forgotten name, succeed, and the next day might bring good fortune. Fail. Nothing dramatic, just a lingering feeling that something almost happened. Dream interpreters paid close attention to how a god appeared. Were they cloaked? Speaking in riddles, smiling. Holding something, each detail mattered. The color of a robe, the direction of a gaze, the number of steps between you and them, all symbolic. And sometimes it wasn't a god at all. It was someone pretending to be one, because the subconscious is sneaky, and sometimes your own fears wear a divine mask. Interpreters called these false dreams visions that looked sacred, but twisted upon waking. They'd be considered warnings from your own Ka, your life force urging you to get your act together before a real god had to step in. And if the dream ended with the god simply turning their back on you, no one really wanted to interpret that one. So tonight, as you drift into sleep and the shapes behind your eyelids begin to move, listen closely. That whisper might be your own mind, or it might be Thoth, returning with another scroll. You dream of beer. Not just any beer, warm beer. It sloshes in a clay jug that you carry with reverence through a courtyard of palm trees, while frogs chant softly under a blood-colored moon. You take a sip. It's sour, thick, and somehow deeply disappointing. You wake up and, if you're an ancient Egyptian, you panic, because the dream manual has an entry for that. If a man dreams of drinking warm beer, it is bad. He will fall ill. That's it. No nuance. No room for interpretation. Just, you're doomed, buddy. Maybe don't make long-term plans. The Egyptians didn't mess around with their dream interpretations, and while some dreams brought hope and blessings, others felt like prophetic slaps to the face. Welcome to the world of dreams that whispered, "You're probably not going to make it." Take the dream where you see your own tombstone. Sounds obvious, right? But not always. Egyptians viewed dreams through the lens of duality, symbol and shadow. Seeing your tomb could sometimes mean legacy, Other times it meant a literal countdown. If a man sees himself lying in a tomb, it is bad. He is already numbered among the dead. Charming. Or consider the dream where you're bitten by a snake. That could mean treachery, illness, unseen enemies. Unless, of course, you kill the snake in the dream. In which case, congratulations. You've defeated your spiritual IRS audit. But if the snake wins, time to update your will. Some dreams didn't even need scary imagery. They were terrifying in their mundanity. If a man dreams of walking alone through a field, it is bad. He is soon to be separated. Why? Who knows? Maybe the gods had a problem with a solo agriculture? And don't get too cozy with food dreams either. While eating in dreams was generally considered good, suggesting abundance or divine favor, what you ate mattered. Eating dates, good, might bring sweetness to your home. Eating raw onions, good for your fields. Eating stone or dirt, bad. It means you're taking in grief. Literally. Eating human flesh. Let's not even go there. The manual does, you wish it didn't. And then there are the animal encounters. We've already talked about crocodiles and cats. But let's get to the weirder ones. If a man dreams of being licked by a donkey, it is bad. He will be humiliated publicly. Of course he will. If a man sees a monkey wearing a crown, it is bad. A fool will rise to power. This one probably had a good year during the collapse of a few dynasties. If a man is chased by a goose, it is bad. He has ignored his duty. No one wants to be shamed by poultry in a dream. But in Egyptian symbology, geese represented watchfulness. Being chased, you've been caught slacking. And then we arrive at the extra special dreams, the ones where death itself shows up. The manual doesn't always mention Osiris by name, but dreaming of dark water, closed doors, desert paths, or falling stars could all suggest an encounter with death or the afterlife. If a man sees himself crossing the river with no boat, it is bad. His spirit is unprepared. Translation: get your metaphysical act together. And if you dream of weaving your own funeral shroud, the interpretation isn't subtle. Now, one might wonder, were these dreams taken literally? Historians still debate how doom-laden Egyptians really were. Some argue these dark dreams served as warnings, not certainties meant to prompt action, like cleansing rituals, offerings to the gods, or an extra sincere prayer to Thoth with a side of incense and a humble snack. Others believe the dream manual leaned conservative, better to treat a dream as serious and be wrong, then laugh it off and find yourself on a one-way trip to the underworld. There are records of ritual cleansings performed after bad dreams. A priest would wash you in river water, chant protective hymns, and sometimes write your dream onto a papyrus and burn it, symbolically erasing its power, kind of like ancient spiritual delete key. There were even amulets specifically for nightmares, carved stones shaped like lions, serpents, or divine eyes. Some had spells etched into their surface. May the darkness depart. May no evil linger. May the dream fade as the night ends. And of course, let's not forget the classic place an amulet under your headrest technique. That's not a metaphor. You'd literally sleep with a charm under your skull, like some ancient spiritual post-it note reminding the gods not to scare you tonight. One curious detail: not all bad dreams were personal. Some were believed to be messages for others. You might dream of a burning city and the interpreter would tell you it's about the pharaoh's court, not your street corner. These prophetic dreams were treated seriously, especially when they came from people with no political stake. There's a story of a farmer dreaming of the moon turning red, the Nile drying, and 3 birds flying backward. The dream was passed from village to village until a priest recorded it, and within a month, a rebellion broke out in a nearby province. Coincidence? Maybe. But the dream was archived. The symbols were noted, because in Egypt, dreams weren't isolated events. They were threads in a larger divine tapestry, and that tapestry had some alarming patterns. Of course, not all bad dreams led to disaster. Some were symbolic hurdles meant to challenge the dreamer. Dreaming of being lost in a maze that could mean you're seeking knowledge, not that you'll die in a tragic labyrinth accident. Dreaming of drowning, a possible rebirth. But it all depended on context. Were you struggling or swimming? Did anyone try to save you? Was the water clean? One fringe theory says even the temperature of water in dreams mattered. Cool meant peace. Hot meant conflict. Lukewarm. That meant indecision, a personal crisis of whether to act or not. Even the direction mattered. Walking north in a dream, a sign of divine favor. Walking south, not so much. And if you walked west, toward the land of the dead, well, maybe leave a nice offering on your next temple visit. So tonight, if you find yourself sipping warm beer in a dream, don't panic. But maybe skip dessert tomorrow, just in case. You flip open the dream manual again metaphorically because it's an ancient scroll and you're not allowed to crease it, and you start to notice something strange. The entries feel random. Dream of fish wealth. Dream of broken sandals loss. Dream of eating figs on a boat with your grandmother. Okay, nothing about that one. It doesn't take long to realize this book makes no attempt at narrative order, which, considering the Egyptians were experts in structure, is kind of funny. They could design pyramids down to the millimeter, align temples with the solstices, organize funerary texts with the elegance of divine geometry, and yet, when it came to this dream manual, the entries feel like someone spilled a divine soup of symbols and said, close enough. Historians still argue whether the surviving dream scroll was ever part of a larger, more organized whole. The fragment we have likely copied by a professional scribe sometime during the New Kingdom is arranged into two sections, good dreams and bad dreams. That's it. No thematic clusters, no index, no friendly. Are you dreaming of donkeys? Skip to line 42, just line after line. If a man dreams of looking into a mirror, it is bad. He sees what he should not. If a man dreams of eating a ripe melon, it is good. His house will prosper. If a man dreams of dancing naked in the temple, it is bad. He will be accused. You get the idea. Some scholars believe this was intentional, a method to keep interpretation sacred and prevent the untrained from flipping straight to dreams that mean, I win at life. Others think the dream book we know today was only one piece of a more complete library, a sort of starter scroll with supplemental texts that, unfortunately, either decayed, burned, or were buried with priests who refused to share. One especially spicy theory that the entries were originally accompanied by oral explanations. A trained interpreter wouldn't just read the line aloud, they'd expand on it, give context, maybe even adjust the meaning based on the season or your profession. Dreamed of planting barley in your kitchen for a farmer. It might mean abundance. For a priest, impurity. For a soldier, unwanted domesticity. For your cousin who keeps borrowing money, probably guilt. But without the scribe, all we have is the text. And the text, it's mysterious. Take, for example, this beauty. If a man dreams of drinking milk from a donkey, it is bad. He will be betrayed by one close to him. Okay, first of all, how did that image even get into someone's dream? Second of all, betrayal by whom? The donkey, the milkman, the cousin again, or this one. If a man sees his left eye fall into his right hand, it is good. He will see clearly. A fringe theory suggests this is symbolic of inner vision, while another posits it's simply about controlling perception. Or maybe the scribe just liked metaphors that made listeners squirm. Some entries are poetic, almost eerily beautiful. If a man sees himself rising with the sun, it is good. He is favored by Ra. If he walks with the moon and casts no shadow, it is bad. He is not seen. You read those and suddenly the ancient dream manual doesn't feel so bureaucratic. It feels personal. As if the scribe who penned it didn't just copy down entries, he curated them. Perhaps even from his own dream. That theory gained traction when archaeologists discovered a scribal palette near an abandoned temple site with the name Pentar, etched into it the same name attached to some versions of the Dream Scroll. Pentar is best known for writing epic poetry about Pharaoh Ramesses X, but maybe he had a side hustle sleep analyst to the stars. Of course, we'll never know for sure because so much of the scroll is missing. That's right. The version we study today is incomplete, a single papyrus, slightly torn, browned with age, stored now in the British Museum. Of the presumed original, only fragments survive. Entries cut off midline, words missing, meanings lost. One damaged line reads, "If a man dreams of walking backward on a crocodile," illegible. "His path will say, will what, Pentar." Another simply ends, "If a man dreams of speaking with the stars." That's it, no verdict, no outcome. It's like being handed a cosmic riddle and having the punchline swallowed by time. Some believe that was the point, that the ambiguity preserved the mystery, that dream interpretation wasn't supposed to be solved, it was supposed to be felt. Others argue the scroll was a working document, not sacred text, a priest's notebook, a beginner's guide, a scribal warm-up exercise, perhaps even dictated by multiple voices over time. That would explain why some entries are crisp and clean, while others ramble like your uncle at a family dinner after 2 cups of fermented honey wine. What's certain is this: the dream manual was not universal. There's no evidence every temple used the same version. Different regions likely had their own variants. In Thebes, dreaming of a jackal might mean divine protection. In Memphis, it might mean a tax audit. Cultural context mattered. So did current events. If the Nile flooded too early, interpreters might skew pessimistic. If a king died unexpectedly, dreams featuring boat symbols of passage suddenly gained ominous overtones. It was a living text, shifting with time, place, and paranoia. So when you look at the dream manual today and wonder, why does it jump from figs to funerals to frogs? The answer is because dreams do too. This wasn't meant to be read front to back. It was meant to be consulted, flipped through, whispered aloud, puzzled over, debated in candlelight. And when it failed to give clarity, you didn't blame the book. You blamed the gods. You're not in a temple tonight. You're not on a cushioned bed with linen sheets, or sleeping beneath a golden canopy etched with protective spells. You're somewhere more practical. The mud walls are cracked. The mat under your back is woven straw. A pot of leftover lentils cools in the corner. Welcome to the world of the average Egyptian dreamer. Because not everyone had the time, money, or divine connections to sleep under the stars at a temple of Serapis and sip lotus tea while waiting for Thoth to personally show up with a scroll. Most people, farmers, potters, herdsmen, scribes in training, fisherwomen, and merchants dreamed in dusty bedrooms, after dusty days, with far fewer illusions of grandeur, and yet their dreams mattered. Maybe not to the priest, maybe not to the pharaoh, but to them a dream could be a warning, a blessing, or at the very least something to talk about at breakfast. You dream of a well overflowing with grain. You tell your neighbor. He nods and says, "Good." The goddess Renenutet smiles on you. You sleep again. You dream of a scorpion hiding in your bread oven. He raises an eyebrow. Bad. Stay alert. Just like that. The dream becomes social currency. A signal, a shared superstition, even a minor prophecy. The dream manual, for all its temple prestige, was also filtered down into popular understanding. Think of it like spiritual word of mouth. A scribe interprets a dream in Thebes. The interpretation gets overheard by a servant. The servant tells her cousin. The cousin retells it in a market. And by next week, everyone knows that dreaming of sneezing twice means unexpected guest. There's evidence that dream interpretation was democratized, at least informally. Small figurines bearing Bess's image have been found in working-class homes. Amulets designed to ward off sleep demons weren't just royal property. Even scrap pieces of ostraca, those broken bits of pottery used for casual notes, have been found with dream symbols scribbled on them. Maybe not formal entries, but someone was keeping track. If I dream of rain during festival season, I should avoid the western path. If my brother dreams of falling 3 times, mother says to check the roof tiles. Dream logic, dream wisdom, passed from hand to hand like fresh bread. And these weren't people lounging around pondering metaphysics. They worked hard, from sunup to sundown, often with blistered feet and full-body sunburns. They prayed when they could, offered thanks when they were lucky, and mostly just tried to stay out of trouble. So for them, dreams weren't just messages. They were mirrors. You work in a granary, and you dream of the grain turning to sand. You don't need a priest to tell you what that means. You worry about spoilage, about mice, about your future. You catch fish for a living, and you dream of catching none. You wake with a tight chest. That day, you work harder. Dreams reflect fear, yes, but also desire. You dream of finding a gold ring in the river. It's not a vision from Ra. It's because your wife has been eyeing jewelry and you've been pretending not to notice. You dream of a quiet field with no work and shade trees everywhere. You're exhausted. That's not prophecy. That's your back begging for mercy. Still, there were communal beliefs. You hear someone had a dream about a snake in the granary? You tell the others. Everyone agrees best not to use that granary for a few days. Or at least double-check the storage jars. There's even a record of a village stopping a planned festival because 3 separate people reported dreaming of a crocodile swimming uphill. That's absurd. And clearly meaningful. The priest said it was a sign the festival date needed to shift. So they did. Was it fear reverence? Just an excuse to delay the work? Does it matter? The dream was real to them. The reaction, practical. And don't think the poor were dreamless. On the contrary, hard lives fuel vivid minds. You sleep in hunger, and you dream of banquets. You live under threat, and you dream of flying. You work in anonymity, and you dream of being seen by the gods. There are even stories of dreams traveling upward from farmer to merchant, merchant to scribe, scribe to priest until someone of rank took notice. One papyrus fragment refers to a worker of flax who dreamt of Osiris offering a cup of silver. It was passed to a scribe, who considered it significant enough to write down. Whether it was ever delivered to the temple is unknown, but the dream made it into history. Sometimes, average people sought interpretations from local wise women or village elders, people known for hearing the gods or seeing clearly during the night. These weren't licensed interpreters, just those with a reputation. Maybe they'd seen a god once in a dream, or predicted the birth of a neighbor's child. Whatever the reason, people trusted them. These interpreters rarely quoted the dream manual. They spoke from experience, from instinct, maybe a little dramatic flair. Ah, you dreamed of birds flying east. That means good news. Unless the birds were silent. Were they silent? Then never mind. Stay home tomorrow. And yet, as casual as it sounds, these readings mattered. They changed behavior. They shaped choices. You might cancel a trip, or say yes to a marriage offer, or make an offering just in case your dream of the river overflowing turns out to be more than metaphor. Because at the core of it, dreams were seen as a part of the natural world, not mystical, not extraordinary, just another way the universe speaks, like wind, or rain, or a goat staring too long in your direction. So tonight, you sleep on your mat. Your back aches. Your hands are rough. Your day was long. But maybe you dream of figs, of storms, of a bird speaking your name. And maybe you wake up knowing something you didn't know before. You open your eyes, and you're somewhere in between. The stone floor beneath your back is cool, but soft linen cushions the bones. A faint scent of burning myrrh wafts through the chamber. The ceiling above is covered in faded murals, falcons, ankhs, a blue-skinned god with a pen in one hand and the moon on his brow. You are not at home. You are in a sleep temple, or more precisely, a dream incubation chamber. This isn't just a place to nap. This is where the ancient Egyptians came to dream on purpose, to invite the gods into their sleep, to request visions, to search for healing, wisdom, or a much-needed cosmic clue about that unsettling crocodile dream they had 3 nights ago. The practice of dream incubation wasn't unique to Egypt, but Egypt did it with style. Let's set the scene. The temple itself would be large, complex, and humming with sacred geometry. You wouldn't go in casually like you're dropping off laundry. You'd prepare, fast, bathe, offer coins or bread or a lock of your own hair. Maybe write your question or concern on a strip of linen and offer it up to the priests. Then you'd be led into the inner sanctum, a secluded, often windowless chamber tucked deep within the temple, lined with stone, sometimes painted with protective deities. It would be quiet, dim, cool, the perfect mix of mystery and claustrophobia. You might lie on a stone bench or a raised platform covered in cloth. You'd be anointed with oil of lotus or frankincense. A priest might recite an invocation to Serapis or Thoth. The air would smell like dust and moonlight. And then you'd sleep. Not just to rest, but to receive. Historians still debate what exactly happened during these incubation rituals. Were dreams induced naturally, or were substances involved herbs, smoke, sacred wines brewed just a little strong? Some records hint at blue lotus infusions, known to create mildly euphoric, even hallucinogenic states. Others describe chants that went on for hours, repetitive and hypnotic, nudging the mind across the veil. You weren't expected to just sleep and hope. You were expected to be prepared, spiritually tuned, mentally open, emotionally receptive, not unlike logging into a sacred inbox and clicking refresh until a vision arrived. And if no dream came, you stayed another night, sometimes 3 or 4. A priest might guide you in interpreting what you saw or didn't see. You might be told to repeat your offering, or to sleep facing a different direction, or to cleanse yourself again with Nile water before bed. Because this wasn't a science. It was a conversation with the divine. And sometimes the divine needed you to prove you were serious. The gods most commonly invoked for dream incubation were Serapis, Imhotep, Thoth, and Hathor, depending on your question. Serapis was the all-purpose dream technician. Healing, guidance, fertility, and political visions all fell under his domain. Imhotep, once a mortal architect, had been deified as a god of healing. If you came with physical ailments, you invoked him. Thoth, of course, for wisdom. His dreams were often cryptic, full of strange imagery and puzzles. Hathor dreams of joy, music, love, and sometimes gentle madness. And the dreams people had, recorded sometimes in temple logs, sometimes passed down as oral tales, and they were wild. A merchant dreams of being swallowed by a serpent made of gold. Upon waking, he donates half his earnings to the temple. A week later, a flash flood destroys half the market but not his stall. A woman dreams of Hathor handing her a blue jar filled with starlight. She conceives a child 3 months later. A scribe dreams of climbing a staircase to nowhere. He dies shortly after. His nephew claims the dream was a warning and leaves the bureaucracy to become a farmer. Dreams had consequences, and the temples treated them seriously. One record from the Temple of Serapis describes a dreamer being visited by a falcon who led him to a hidden well. When he awoke, he found that the temple builders had misplaced a water source. Following the dream's vision, they uncovered a previously lost spring. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you're thirsty in the desert, dream water tastes just as good. And it wasn't just healing or prophecy. Some came to apologize through dreams to atone for wrongs, to confess things too dangerous to say aloud. The temple became a middleman, a divine voicemail service. You'd sleep, whisper your regret as you drifted off, and hope the gods showed mercy. Some records mention group incubation, multiple dreamers sleeping in a sacred hall at once. Imagine that 10 people, each chasing their own divine message, breathing incense, murmuring in sleep, the air thick with silence and anticipation. And if one screamed in their sleep, that was interpreted too. Even nightmares had meaning. And when you awoke, you told the priests everything. Every feather, every face, every falling sensation, every sentence whispered by a creature whose mouth you couldn't see. The priests recorded it, interpreted it, and sometimes shared it. Because certain dreams weren't just for you. They were considered omens, messages meant for the entire temple, city, or kingdom. If 3 people in 1 week dreamt of sandstorms, the high priest took note. If someone dreamed of Pharaoh being devoured by a jackal, that might prompt a quiet note to the royal astrologer. And if no one dreamed at all, that could be a warning too. The gods had gone silent. That's when the temple got worried. That's when they added more incense, lit more lamps, slept deeper, listened harder. Because the sleep temple wasn't just a place to rest. It was a threshold. And the gods, they were always just on the other side. You step out of the sleep temple changed. The dream lingers behind your eyelids like smoke that doesn't know it's supposed to rise. A lion turned into a reed, a child holding your name written in fire, a hand offering you something. But what? You feel it meant something. You feel it still means something. But what if you could make it clearer, sharper, stronger? That's where the ancient Egyptians got creative. Because while most people just fell asleep and hoped for the best, others wanted to hack the dream system. We're talking rituals, potions, even a little ancient brain hacking that would put modern lucid dreamers to shame. Dream control wasn't just a spiritual curiosity, it was a skill. And if you were devoted or desperate enough, you could try to induce specific dreams, ward off nightmares, or even influence someone else's dreams. Yes, that was a thing. Let's start with the basics. You want a dream. Not just any dream, but a meaningful one. Maybe a glimpse of your future spouse, a sign about your upcoming journey, or clarity about that one goat you suspect is cursed. The first step, purification. This wasn't optional. You couldn't dream properly if your spirit was dusty, and Egypt had many ways to clean you up. You'd wash probably with natron, a natural salt. You'd anoint your temples with scented oils, often blue lotus, frankincense, or cinnamon bark. You might fast for a day. Sleep in silence and avoid loud or unpleasant people. Which honestly sounds like good advice regardless. Next came chanting, repetitive prayers, often to Thoth or Bez, were used to tune the mind like a stringed instrument. Come to me, great God of words, show me the truth in sleep. You might whisper, over and over, until the sound was more thought than voice. Then came the dream-inducing tools. This is where things get weird in a fascinating, incense-drenched kind of way. Some Egyptians used dream pillows stuffed with aromatic herbs believed to open the dream channels. Imagine lying down on a small cushion filled with crushed blue lotus petals, wild thyme, and dried poppy seeds. The scent was intoxicating, gentle, guiding. Other times, dreamers burned herbs in the sleeping chamber mandrake, henbane, or frankincense mixed with juniper. These scents weren't just pleasant, they were thought to attract divine spirits. Like putting out an astral cheese platter and hoping a god showed up for a snack and a chat. There's evidence some more daring dreamers ingested small amounts of blue lotus extract, likely in wine or tea. Blue lotus isn't a hallucinogen in the modern sense, but it does create a dreamy, relaxed state with mild euphoria and an increased chance of vivid imagery. It wasn't for casual use you'd do this under supervision, likely in a temple or with a trusted scribe. And if you really wanted to go all in, you might create a ritual object to hold while you slept a dream trigger. This could be a carved stone, a miniature scroll, a bead inscribed with your question. You'd sleep with it in your hand, under your pillow, or if you were ambitious, tied to your chest. Some even drew symbols on their skin. A bird for clarity, a moon for divine messages, an eye for protection. And all of this wasn't just to have dreams. It was to have the right ones. Dreamers sometimes used mirror spells before bed, gazing into polished bronze and reciting incantations that asked the gods to show them what they were not yet able to see. If I am blind by day, one spell goes, let me see by night. Let my sleep hold no lies. But let's say you weren't looking for vision. You wanted defense. Because the night wasn't just full of gods. It had other things, too. Spirits, demons, uninvited guests. Egyptian belief included a whole range of entities that might try to hijack your dreams. There were night terrors with names, some human, some not, some just mischief makers, others far worse. To ward them off, you used magic knives. Not real knives, these were carved ivory blades, decorated with protective deities, animals, and spells. You'd place one under your bed, near your door, or even sleep with it beside your head like a celestial security system. Bezin, of course, was your go-to bodyguard, but Taweret, the pregnant hippo goddess, also had nighttime jurisdiction, especially for women and children. If you saw her in your dream, you were likely being protected. But dream hacking didn't stop at defense. There are records, albeit murky, suggesting that some Egyptians tried to send messages through dreams. Yes, remote dream messaging. You might perform a ritual asking that a specific person dream of you. Maybe someone far away. Maybe someone in power. Maybe someone you wanted to fall in love with you, or forgive you, or remember that you once saved them from a snake and they owe you a favor. Historians still debate whether these were symbolic gestures or genuine attempts at psychic networking. But some magical papyri include detailed instructions. Anoint your lips with honey and myrrh. Speak the name of the sleeper. Breathe into the night. Whisper your desire into their name. And then You sleep and hope they wake up remembering you. But the ultimate dream hack, lucid dreaming. It's not called that in the text, us of course, but some entries hint at dreamers becoming aware within the dream, recognizing symbols, making choices. If a man walks with the moon and chooses his path, it is good. He sees truly. Some rituals even aim to call the BI to return during sleep, suggesting that the dreamer's soul would visit the realm of sleep, gather knowledge, and report back, which is why so many dreamers woke with a sense of mission. They hadn't just seen things. They'd been given things. And with that came responsibility. You'd speak to a scribe, record your vision, maybe make an offering, maybe act on what you saw. A warning dream might save your life. A dream of rain might mean preparing for flood. A vision of a broken wall might prompt a visit to the mason, just in case. And if your dream was too strange, you'd try again tomorrow. Sleep, chant, burn incense, breathe deep. The gods are busy, but if you call softly enough, they might return. You dream of fire, not wild, chaotic flames, but a controlled blaze inside a ceremonial bowl, held aloft by a man in golden sandals. His head is a falcon's. His voice is thunder whispered through silk. He nods once, points to a scroll, and disappears. You wake in a sweat, heart pounding, breath caught halfway between, did I just meet Horus and I hope this doesn't mean taxes are due? For most ancient Egyptians, this would not be a coincidence. Because when rulers dreamt, or priests, generals, high officials, it wasn't just a personal matter. Dreams could become policy. Tonight, we descend into the political side of dreaming, where visions weren't just interpreted, they were consulted, acted upon, and sometimes fabricated for power. You see, while dreams were deeply spiritual for the average person, for those in power, they were also tactical tools. A dream from the gods could legitimize a ruler, justify a military campaign, or settle a courtroom dispute without a single dagger drawn. Let's start with the pharaohs. Egyptian rulers weren't just kings. They were divine intermediaries, living gods who walked the Nile and occasionally wore enormous headdresses that doubled as shade umbrellas. Their authority rested on Machat cosmic balance, and dreams were seen as signs that Mahat either approved or needed a little maintenance. It's said that Pharaoh Thutmose IV rose to power after a dream. As the legend goes, he fell asleep at the base of the Sphinx, just a dusty prince with too many older brothers and not enough influence. In the dream, the Sphinx, who was feeling chatty that night, told him, "Clear the sand from around me, and I'll make you pharaoh." He did, and he was... Historians still argue whether this dream actually happened, or whether it was a bit of political propaganda engraved in stone to explain why he, and not someone else, ended up ruling. Either way, the dream became doctrine, carved into the dream stele between the paws of the great Sphinx itself. A dream that shaped history literally. Pharaohs weren't the only ones leveraging dreams. Generals and military advisors often consulted dream interpretations before major battles. Some even delayed attacks based on bad omens. Imagine waking up and telling your troops, "We march at dawn. Unless I see a black bull eating stars tonight." Then, Thursday, it happened. And when it did, people listened. Because a military leader who ignored a dream and lost the battle, that wasn't just defeat, it was seen as divine disobedience. And no one wanted to anger Horus on the eve of a campaign. There are fragments of correspondence, mostly from the later dynasties, that show generals reporting their dreams to priests, then waiting for approval to proceed. Sometimes the answer was, "Proceed. The dream was good. Victory awaits." Other times, "Hold, the bird flew backward. The path is not clear. One particularly dramatic tale tells of a general who dreamed of a scorpion crawling up his leg and biting his heart. His priest told him it was a warning of internal betrayal. 2 days later, he discovered his second-in-command had been bribed by a rival kingdom. Coincidence? The general didn't think so. Some dreams were so politically loaded that they were declared prophetic visions. A priest might claim to dream of the pharaoh crowned by Isis herself. That dream could be used to validate a controversial coronation, or to devalidate a rival. If your dream says you're king, and my dream says you're not, well, guess who has the better temple choir? And then there's the legal side of dreaming. In some temple courts, dreams were admitted as evidence, especially in disputes involving land, inheritance, or spiritual matters. If someone claimed a relative appeared in a dream, declaring they had been cheated out of burial goods, the priest might investigate. Of course, this also led to a few creative dreamers. I dreamed Uncle Sabu said the goats are mine. That's convenient. Uncle Sabu told me in my dream that you still owe him 6 figs. The priest had to decide whose dream was more credible, which often meant judging who had more offerings that week. Divine communication. Meet economics. There were also dream embassies envoys sent to temples to request divine insight on behalf of rulers. They'd bring tributes, conduct rituals, and sleep in incubation chambers, hoping for a message they could bring back to court. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. And occasionally, the dream was so ambiguous that the priest would interpret it in a way that conveniently aligned with existing political plans. Funny how that works. Dreams even played a role in foreign diplomacy. One record speaks of a visiting prince from the Hittite Empire who claimed to dream of Ra inviting him to bask in Egyptian light. Whether that meant alliance, surrender, or just a particularly sweaty afternoon is unclear. But the Egyptian court took it as a sign of submission. And what of the people behind the dreams? The scribes? The interpreters. The quiet ones with ink-stained fingers and minds full of symbols. They had power too. Because whoever controlled the meaning of the dream controlled the narrative. One temple scribe might say, "This dream means the harvest will be plentiful." Another might say, "It means the pharaoh must sacrifice 10 goats to ensure the harvest will be plentiful." You can guess which one the priest preferred. And sometimes a dream interpretation would backfire. Like the scribe who told a nobleman his dream of drowning meant rebirth and glory. The nobleman threw a party in celebration. 3 days later, he drowned during a fishing trip. That story made it into a few marginal notes, followed by the phrase, "Do not speak lightly of water dreams." Still, not all political dreams were grim. There were dreams of peace treaties, dreams of 2 cobras intertwining a symbol of unity, dreams of fields blooming in foreign lands. These were often used to justify diplomatic marriages or celebrate seasonal alignments. The message was clear: the gods dream of harmony. So should we. So tonight, as you close your eyes, think of the pharaoh dreaming beneath the stars. Think of generals seeking signs in sleep. Think of scribes weighing symbols like coins on a cosmic scale. And remember, your dreams might not command an empire, but they're still worth listening to. You're asleep now, deep in that hazy middle where faces blur and rooms shift, and you suddenly find yourself being chased by a donkey with wings. It's not cute, it's flapping, loudly, and it's speaking in your mother's voice. You wake with a jolt, cold sweat, racing heart. And if you're ancient Egyptian, you don't need a degree in dreamology to know that wasn't a message from Thoth. That was something else. It was a nightmare, but not just any nightmare. In the Egyptian worldview, bad dreams weren't just inconvenient, they were invasive. They weren't mental static. They were signs that something or someone was trying to get in. Welcome to the terrifying crossroads of nightmares and divine messages, because sometimes it was hard to tell which was which. Let's start with the basics. Ancient Egyptians understood that dreams could come from multiple sources. Divine entities, the gods, benevolent and cryptic. The Ba, your soul self, wandering through dream space. The dead ancestors delivering guidance or unsettling observations. And then, the malevolent ones? These last ones, they were the night demons, the spiritual tricksters, the whispers that slip through cracks in your defenses when you forgot to wear your protective amulet or skipped your evening chant. And once they got in, they didn't just scare you, they could damage you. A nightmare in ancient Egypt could be a spiritual infection. If a man dreams of shadows crawling across his bed, it is bad. He has been touched by a restless one. Not dramatic enough. Try this. If a man dreams of losing his voice while calling out, it is bad. His words are being stolen by a demon. You get the idea. Dreams weren't just messages. They were arenas. And sometimes you lost the fight. So how did you tell a divine message from a demonic invasion? Symbol clarity. Divine dreams usually came with structure, order. Symbols you could decode, even if they were strange. You see Thoth handing you a scroll. That's a message. You see a crocodile drinking sand while a baby sings backwards. That's probably not divine. Another clue, emotional residue. Divine dreams left you contemplative, calm, maybe shaken, but clear. Nightmares. You woke feeling violated, not confused, but infected. Cold sweat, unease, a sense that something was still watching. Historians still debate whether nightmares were considered spiritual attacks or simply messages in disguise. Some argue they were warnings, rough symbolism meant to wake you up. Others say they were actual visitations, spiritual intrusions that needed to be purged. The Egyptians didn't take chances. If you had a nightmare, you took action. You went to the temple. You recited a protection spell. You burned kaifi, that sweet, resin-heavy incense. You might even commission a ritual purification, a priest anointing your head, your bed, your doorway, not unlike a divine bug bombing. And if the nightmares kept coming, there were stronger methods. Amulets. You'd wear a carved figure of Bes or Tauret, usually in hippo or lioness form, around your neck or under your pillow. You might even draw their faces on your bedroom walls full of teeth, eyes wide, tongues out, not to scare you, but to scare away the things that scared you. One common amulet was the Eye of Horus, believed to grant both protection and dream clarity. Worn during sleep, it kept your Ba safe on its nightly journey and helped it find its way back. Because yes, that was a concern, getting lost in dreams. More intense still were protective knives, ritual tools carved from ivory or faience, etched with spells. You didn't use them physically. You placed them beside the bed to cut down evil spirits. Think of it like sleeping beside a magical security guard who worked night shifts and didn't ask questions. And then there were counter-dream spells. These were written by scribes onto papyri, recited aloud, then burned or buried. One reads, "May the shadow that touched me be swallowed by the sun. May my dream be broken like a clay jar at dawn. May I sleep unmarked. May I rise whole." There are even records of people carving their dreams onto ostraca bits of pottery or stone, then throwing them into the Nile, symbolically giving the dream to the river. A spiritual offloading. But perhaps the most unique tool in the fight against nightmares: dream sharing. You'd tell someone, out loud, over bread, or in the courtyard, or to a scribe. Speaking the dream made it lose power. Naming the monster diminished it. And if you didn't want to speak it, You'd draw it on walls, on pots, sometimes just on dirt traced with a stick and then immediately smudged out. One fringe interpretation of wall art found in an artisan's village at Deir el-Medina suggests the drawings weren't decorative, they were dream residue. Visual spells to trap or release dream visions, and still, the nightmares came. If a man dreams of being buried alive, it is bad. He hides from the truth. If a woman dreams her child is taken by a hawk, it is bad. Her home is vulnerable. If a man dreams of silence falling on the gods, it is very bad. He will walk in darkness. Not all nightmares were punishment. Some were warnings. Some were tests. A challenge from the gods to see if you could endure what you feared most and rise above it. If you succeeded, your dream might shift. The snake becomes a road. The fire becomes light. The voice returns. If you failed, you tried again and again. Because dreams weren't one-and-done events. They came in cycles. Like the Nile. Like life. Some priests kept dream logs for their patients. If you came back with the same nightmare twice, that was a pattern. 3 times. A message was being missed. One famous dreamer, known only as Khaimhet, had the same dream 5 nights in a row, a hand reaching from the sand, holding a broken mirror. On the 6th night, he dreamed of the same hand offering the mirror back repaired. He awoke and donated a polished mirror to the temple of Hathor. He never had the dream again. So maybe that's what nightmares were for. Not to torment, but to provoke action, to cleanse, to warn, to push you towards something you wouldn't otherwise see. So tonight, if your dreams turn dark, don't fear them. They may just be Bez shaking you by the shoulders and saying, "Pay attention. Wake up. You dream of onions. Not metaphorical ones, literal. Juicy. Golden onions rolling down a sand dune like they have somewhere important to be. You pick one up, take a bite, and hear someone yell, 'Rain is coming.' You wake up, and it does rain. Coincidence. Or just one of those weirdly specific predictions the ancient Egyptian dream manuals are full of. Because here's the thing, while a lot of ancient dreams were symbolic birds for freedom, snakes for danger, boats for the afterlife, some of them were absurdly, almost suspiciously specific. As if the gods weren't just sending vague hints anymore, they were practically yelling, "Yes, Tuesday, bring your umbrella." Let's start with the most classic of these. If a man dreams of eating onions, rain will fall. Now, is there a scientific link between onions and weather? Not at all, Lane. But onions were associated with cleansing, and rain was too. So the logic kind of tracked. Or maybe the priest just really liked onions and wanted people to eat more of them. Hard to say. Here's another one. If a man dreams of breaking a clay pot, his cousin will return. Wait, which cousin? From where? Was this a common enough problem that they wrote it down? Historians still argue whether these entries were based on actual recorded dream events, or were just ceremonial folklore that made its way into the official scrolls. And it gets stranger. If a man dreams of drinking wine with a black cat, he will be asked to judge a dispute. We're not saying wine and cats were considered signs of courtroom drama, but clearly someone had a very memorable night. There's also, if a man dreams of catching a blue fish, a messenger will arrive bearing news. What kind of news doesn't say, but if you woke up after a dream like that, you might start watching the horizon, just in case a messenger stumbled out of the desert with a scroll and bad sandals. One of the most charming, if a man dreams of bees gathering in his sandals, gold will find him. Was that metaphorical gold literal treasure? Or just a really sweet tax refund? The Egyptians weren't clear, but it was good news either way. Unless you're allergic to bees. There were even dream entries about timing. If a man dreams of the Nile turning red on the 4th night of the moon, famine will follow. If a woman dreams of stars falling during harvest, her second son will rise above his station. Not just events, when those events happened, mattered. It's like your dream came with a celestial calendar and a very opinionated astrologer. And it wasn't just what happened in the dream, it was how it happened. If a man dreams of riding a horse northward, he will gain honor. If the same man rides the same horse, but it turns west before arriving, his house will fall. That's one turn too many. Fringe scholars have long debated whether these granular dreams were inserted later additions, made by scribes who wanted to flesh out the scroll or add a little flair. But others believe they reflect a deeply localized dream culture, where individual temples recorded and interpreted dream signs based on local events. So maybe in one village, dreaming of a fox meant mischief, but in another it meant a good pomegranate harvest. It depended on your geography and your personal experiences, because Egyptians believed your own life shaped the meaning of your dream. If a soldier dreamed of fire, it might mean war. If a baker dreamed of fire, it might mean success. And if a scribe dreamed of fire, well, he probably needed to stop leaving his lamp too close to the papyrus. And then there are the truly baffling entries. If a man dreams of his teeth turning into frogs, he will receive a visitor bearing wool. We don't know how often that happened, or what kind of party guest shows up with wool, but it was apparently notable enough to document. Or, if a man dreams of flying while chewing bread, his wife will speak truth. That raises so many questions. But the dream manual never blinks. It records these entries as plainly as the others, as if dreaming of a flaming goat holding a flute was just as valid as dreaming of the god Thoth handing you a scroll. And honestly, to them it was because dreams weren't weighed by logic. They were weighed by result. If someone dreamed of eating figs and then got married and told the temple about it, that association got recorded. And if enough fig dreamers got married after that, suddenly the fig dream became official. The Egyptians were basically ancient statisticians, but with incense. Some priests even kept dream logs, long lists of recurring dream symbols. What happened afterward, and whether the event turned out positive or negative. If 5 people dreamed of blue sandals and 3 of them found new jobs, that symbol went on the good list. It was anecdotal data, sure, but it was carefully tracked anecdotal data. One priest from Memphis reportedly logged dreams from over 300 people in his district. Unfortunately, the records were lost in a temple fire, proving that even when your dreams predict the future, no one's safe from bad building maintenance. Still, the practice persisted. Even children's dreams were sometimes recorded. One recovered fragment mentions, "A child dreamed of a goat speaking his name. It is good he will grow in favor." Imagine being 5 years old, telling your mom your goat talked to you in your sleep, and instead of grounding you, she takes you to the temple to record it. That's the kind of spiritual encouragement we all need. So tonight, when you dream something weird like your shoelaces turning into snakes or your cat offering you stock advice, don't write it off. Maybe it means something. Maybe it means everything. Or maybe the gods just have a better sense of humor than we give them credit for. You sit upright at dawn, still half entangled in sleep. Your lips tingle from something whispered. You try to hold on to it, a face, a sentence. The feeling of a door creaking open behind your ribs, but it slips away, leaving only the vague sense that it mattered. So what do? You tell someone, immediately. Because in ancient Egypt, dreams were public business. It didn't matter if you were a priest, a merchant, or a shepherd who spent more time talking to goats than people if your dream had a whiff of something divine. It wasn't just yours, it was everyone's. Welcome to the surprisingly social world of shared dreams. temple gossip, and prophetic PR campaigns. Let's begin with the temples. Dreams reported to priests, especially if they involved gods, floods, or kings, were often recorded, recited, or even announced. You'd walk into the temple, describe what you saw, and if the priest deemed it significant, he might stand before the community that very day and say, "Hear this, people. Last night, a woman of the town dreamed of the crocodile god Sobek walking through fire. Let all be wary, change is near." That's right. Your dream could become news. Temples sometimes maintained official dream walls, list of dreams that had come true. Think of it like a celestial best of playlist. Did someone predict a locust swarm check? A shift in the Nile's flood double check? A birth in the royal household? Now that gets your name chiseled in limestone. Some dreams became so widely repeated that they were practically oral scripture, like songs, passed down, retold and reshaped. Did you hear about the farmer in the Delta who dreamed of 20 blackbirds and then Pharaoh died a week later? What about the baker who dreamed of blood on the moon? The city caught fire after that? The accuracy of these dreams was rarely questioned. The timing may be off, the symbols open to debate, but the fact that they meant something that was never in doubt. And then there were the big dreams. The ones that didn't just trickle through gossip, they exploded. Dreams seen by high priests, royal concubines, or scribes close to the court could turn into public events. The Temple of Karnak was known to host ceremonies in honor of divine messages received through sleep. Picture it. A dreamer clad in ceremonial linen steps onto a platform before the gathered crowd. A high priest reads the dream aloud. On the 6th night of the waning moon, he saw the falcon god soar over the river, leaving feathers of fire. He woke, weeping. People gasp, not for the theatrics, but because they believe this dream is not just personal. It's collective, a sign, a warning, a message from the divine to the nation. Sometimes, dreams like these led to actual policy changes, adjustments to the festival calendar, cleansing rituals for the city, or offerings made on behalf of the entire population. And if you think that sounds a little too convenient, you're not alone. Historians still argue whether some of these public dreams were manufactured. Were they actual reports from sleep? Or did temple officials dream exactly what they needed to sway the people? Let's say the harvest is failing. People are restless. Instead of saying, "We mismanaged grain," the temple announces, "A dream has come." It speaks of the goddess Renenutet withholding her blessing until the people purify their hearts. Suddenly, it's not an economic crisis. It's a moral imperative. Go home. Pray, burn incense. Pay your temple dues. Problem reframed. Public soothed. It was brilliant. And also kind of genius. But the power of dreams didn't just stay in the temples. They reached the marketplace. You'd hear a dream retold by a fishmonger between sales. A shepherd might reference a cousin's dream while trading goats. Children would reenact famous dreams in street games, turning divine omens into bedtime stories. And sometimes dreams caused panic. One papyrus fragment tells of a man who claimed to have dreamed of red sand falling from the sky. Word spread. The markets quieted. People stayed indoors. For 3 days, business slowed across the district until priests issued a statement saying the dream referred to internal doubt, not actual blood rain. Crisis averted, barely. It wasn't uncommon for multiple people to claim the same dream. Whether this was mass hysteria, spiritual synchronicity, or just a very good story making the rounds. The temple took it seriously. If 10 people in 1 week dreamed of jackals howling in the desert, something was up. The dream was documented. The symbols compared. If enough overlap was found, it became a collective message, a divine postcard sent to the whole city. And yet, not all public dreams were grim. Some were joyous. One preserved hymn tells of a young girl who dreamed of the goddess Hathor, placing a flower crown on her head. The priest declared it a symbol of favor, and 3 weeks later, the floodwaters rose gently, fertilizing the fields. Her dream was celebrated. Children sang it. Merchants used it in blessings. A clay tablet with her name and a lotus blossom was made and placed at the temple gate. From dreamer to local legend. But perhaps the most fascinating thing, the line between private and public dream was blurred. If a dream touched on certain symbol snakes, fire, stars falling, boats sinking, the god Anubis whispering it automatically triggered priestly interest. You could try to keep it secret, but if someone overheard you talking in the square, you might wake up to a priest at your door saying, "We heard about your dream. We'd like to record it." And you didn't say no to that, because who wants to ignore God's message? So tonight, as your eyelids get heavy and your mind starts spinning images of birds, bells, or mysterious hands offering you strange gifts, remember, you may wake up tomorrow with something worth sharing. Something strange. Something that catches the ear of someone who knows the symbols. And before you know it, your dream might not be yours anymore. It might belong to everyone. You're dreaming inside a dream. You know it. Somehow. There's that subtle, eerie awareness the color of the sky is too green. The people speak in your voice. And the cat that just winked at you is your 5th grade teacher. And then it hits you. You're dreaming of dreaming. And in ancient Egypt, that wasn't just a rare occurrence, it was a cosmic recursion. A dream within a dream meant you were treading dangerously close to the divine mind. The Egyptians took this phenomenon seriously. To them, a dream about dreaming was not nonsense. It was meta-spiritual territory. A higher layer of consciousness. You weren't just receiving a message anymore. You were entering the source of messages. In modern terms, think of it like accidentally finding the server room behind the curtain of your own mind. Let's be clear, this wasn't common. Most dream manuals only barely touched on it. But the few entries that survive, oh, they drip with mystery. One passage reads, "If a man dreams of dreaming, it is good. He walks in the chamber of the gods." Another, "If he dreams he sleeps and sees visions, he will learn what must not be spoken." So what does it mean to dream a dream? Some scholars think these reports were early forms of lucid dreaming, a rare ability to be aware during the dream state. Others think they were linked to trance states or temple-induced visions where dreamers were guided, layer by layer, into increasingly surreal visions. But the Egyptians, they weren't theorizing. They believed to dream of dreaming was to be in contact with Thoth himself, scribe of the gods, master of the divine script. You weren't just being shown something. You were being invited to write the dream as it formed. A dangerous invitation. Because if you can write the dream, you can rewrite it. And what happens when mortals try that? Some priests warned against pursuing second-order dreams. You could lose yourself. Forget which dream was real. Wake up thinking you were still asleep. Or worse, wake up changed. There are temple carvings that suggest dream recursion was used deliberately as a test. You would be led into a dream state. Inside that dream, you'd dream again. And inside that, you would be asked to answer a riddle, confront a fear, or receive a symbol. If you succeeded, you would wake with a triple truth, a revelation that came from all 3 layers. If you failed, you'd wake hollow, confused, lost in a fog of half impressions and things you weren't meant to see. One myth never written in full, but passed along in cryptic side notes tells of a scribe who dreamed of being in a dream, where he was dreaming that he read the name of a god not meant to be spoken. When he awoke, the papyrus in his chamber had been singed. No fire in the temple. Just that one scroll, curled and blackened. Coincidence? The priest didn't think so. These recursive dreams were also connected to astral pathways routes the soul could take through dream space, like side streets of the Nile. To dream within a dream meant you had left the normal channel and were now drifting on unmapped waters. Some priests encourage this, especially for those seeking prophetic knowledge. If the gods will not speak clearly, let them speak through echoes. One high priest wrote, "Dreaming a dream was also said to open you up to others' dreams." In one case, 2 temple novices reportedly dreamed of the same vision, inside separate dream states, both nested within other dreams. They saw a white bull floating in black water, its eyes glowing. When they awoke and described it, the symbols were so exact that the senior priest ordered 3 days of silence for the temple. Another case, less fortunate, involved a farmer who claimed a dream of a jackal chasing him through several dreams, each more terrifying than the last. When he woke, he couldn't speak for 2 weeks. He eventually whispered, "I followed too far." Even the fringe scrolls, the weirder temple archives full of rejected or questionable visions, mention this phenomenon. One entry says, "If a man dreams, he writes down a dream, and in the dream he reads it aloud and hears another voice speak the ending. It is bad. His fate is already written." Ominous. No, it wasn't always doom, though. There were stories of joy, too. One woman dreamt of her late daughter handing her a lotus flower inside a dream. And when she awoke, her house was filled with the scent of lotus. She made an offering at the temple of Hathor. It was said her crops flourished after that. The Egyptians didn't see dreams as binary. They saw layers, depths, a nested structure that mimicked the layers of the cosmos, the earth, the sky, the duat underworld, and beyond. To dream of dreaming was like skipping levels in a sacred video game. You were fast-tracking through consciousness, whether or not you were ready. Some even theorized that the gods themselves dreamed, and that what we experience as reality was merely the dream of a greater being. So to dream of dreaming was to step closer to the source, to peer through the veil and catch a glimpse of the divine dreaming itself. A fringe priest once wrote, "The gods dream, and in dreaming they create. We dream within that dream. Thus, all life is a reflection of sleep." Of course, not everyone bought that. Some scribes rolled their eyes and said, "You just ate too much barley before bed." But still, they wrote the dreams down anyway, recorded the layers, watched for patterns, because if 2 people dreamed of dreaming in the same week, that meant something. It had to. So tonight, if your dream contains a bed, and in that bed, you sleep, and in that sleep, you see visions, don't panic. Don't wake too fast, because you might be in the middle of something. And the gods, they might still be writing the ending. You're flying now slowly, effortlessly over a field of green. It stretches on forever, warm and golden under a sun that never moves. You see familiar shapes below a home, a river, the outline of a person you once knew. You reach out to them. They turn to you, smile, and then vanish into mist. You wake up with a sense of calm, not relief, not confusion, just stillness. You might have just visited the fields of Aru, because to the ancient Egyptians, dreams weren't just messages from gods or omens about taxes and scorpions. They were also glimpses of the afterlife, a spiritual rehearsal, if you will. The journey of the soul didn't begin after death. It began in sleep. The Egyptian soul had many parts, but two mattered most in dreams: the ka, or life force, and the ba, the personality or soul bird that traveled during sleep and after death. When you slept, your ba could leave your body, fly through unseen worlds, and sometimes, just sometimes, wander into the land of the dead. And if it was peaceful, you might glimpse your future. Aru, also called the Field of Reeds, was paradise, a mirror of the Nile Valley, but perfected, lush, fertile, shimmering with endless sunlight. No suffering, no aging, just eternal satisfaction, often portrayed as tending a perfect fields, reuniting with loved ones, and eating excellent bread. Dreams of Aru were considered blessed. If a man dreams of walking through golden fields with no shadow, it is good. He has seen what awaits. But it wasn't just scenery. You might see ancestors, spouses long gone, children who passed too young, friends whose names were only whispered at offerings. If they appeared smiling, gesturing, or offering gifts that was divine approval, the departed were at peace and they welcomed you. If they were silent, turned away, or shrouded, that meant something too. Not necessarily doom, but something unresolved. Some priests interpreted this as the soul's unfinished business, the need to correct behavior or make restitution before your spirit could join theirs permanently. In fact, the BO was believed to revisit the land of the dead regularly. Dreams were the moments when you noticed. Most of the time, you woke and forgot. But if you remembered even part of it, you were supposed to act. Make an offering. Burn incense. Reaffirm your commitment to Mayat. The balance of truth, harmony, and cosmic order. Because balance mattered. In death and in dreams. And not all afterlife dreams were peaceful. Some were warnings. The Duat, Egypt's underworld, was a dangerous place. Serpents, fire lakes, judges, and gates guarded by gods with names like He Who Lives on Entrails. Not the most relaxing imagery. Dreams that dipped into the Duat were darker mazes, voices behind walls, rivers of black ink. Seeing yourself wade in a dream, especially if you didn't see the outcome, was a sign to check your moral compass. If a man dreams of his heart being lifted by a feather, it is good. He has not lied. But if the heart sank, you must speak truth before it is taken. These weren't just bedtime stories, people acted on them. There are documented cases of Egyptians making confessions at temples after intense death dreams. Not always criminal confessions, sometimes moral ones. I dreamed of a dog with my brother's voice, accusing me of envy. I dreamed I held a scale and my heart sank. Dreams weren't proof of guilt, but they were considered a prompt for self-reflection. And what about dreams of resurrection? They were rare and sacred. One scroll describes a man dreaming of walking through his own tomb, then exiting into sunlight and being greeted by a golden ibis. He woke and declared he had been granted a second breath. He later became a temple servant, dedicating the rest of his life to cleansing and dream interpretation. Another tale tells of a widow dreaming of her husband leading her to a garden, then turning into a fig tree. The fig tree appeared beside her house the next week. Coincidence? She didn't think so. She offered figs to Hathor every month after that. And then there's the occasional full-circle dream where someone dreams of their own death, their funeral rites, their burial, and then wakes up with full clarity and peace. If a man dreams of his tomb and walks through it with no fear, it is good. He will be remembered. These dreams weren't morbid. They were previews. The spiritual equivalent of reading the last page of a book and knowing that, in the end, it all turns out okay. The Egyptians didn't fear death the way we imagine. They prepared for it. They practiced it. and sleep was the stage. So when you lay your head down at night, you were engaging in a ritual rehearsal, a gentle trial run, a way to walk the paths your soul would one day travel, and make peace with the journey ahead. Priests often encouraged reflection after death dreams, not just interpretation, reflection. Who did you see? What did they say? Were you calm, confused, afraid? And most importantly, did you wake with a feeling of balance? Because in the end, Mahat was all that mattered. Not wealth, not power, not even dreams of gold or gods or endless figs. Just balance. Between waking and sleeping, between life and death, between the now and the next. So tonight, if you dream of fields stretching into light, or a quiet river lined with reeds, or a loved one standing at the gate with a smile, they're not just dreams. They're reminders that sleep is sacred, that dreams are steps, and that the journey doesn't end with waking. You're floating again, but not forward, not up, not even down. You're drifting backward, slowly, like being reeled in by something unseen. The dream isn't scary, but it feels like reverse time. You pass familiar places, younger versions of people you know, versions of yourself, and then suddenly you're watching your own birth. And then you wake up. What just happened? In the dream logic of ancient Egypt, you may have just slipped into a memory from a former life. Because for all their obsession with tombs and the afterlife, the Egyptians also had room whispers, really for reincarnation. Not front and center in their religion, but tucked into the fringe folds of belief, where scribes, dreamers, and mystics speculated on souls that returned. Let's tread carefully here. This isn't the Hindu-style rebirth of karma and cycles. The Egyptian view of the soul was more fragmented, split into the Ka, Ba, A, Ren, and Shadow. But within that, there were dreamers and a few very old temple scrolls that hinted at the possibility that some parts of a person could come back. And the proof dreams? If a man dreams of speaking with a face he knows but cannot name, it is good. He remembers before. That's one line from a highly disputed scroll found near Abydos, an area deeply connected with Osiris and the mysteries of life, death, and rebirth. Dreams of past lives weren't always explicit. You didn't wake up saying, "Aha, I was the pharaoh's goose wrangler." More often, the dream would deliver symbols, places you'd never seen but felt familiar, tasks you knew how to perform without ever learning them, languages spoken fluently in the dream, forgotten on waking. These dreams were often quiet, emotional. They didn't demand interpretation, they invited it. Historians still argue whether reincarnation was widely believed or just entertained in esoteric circles. The official theology leaned heavily on eternal life in Aru, not cyclical return, but in temple side scrolls and dream archives. There are mentions of souls returning, unfinished work, and echoes from before. One scroll fragment from the House of Life at Heliopolis reads, "There are those who walk again under different names. The Ba wanders until its oath is complete. Oath to whom for what we'll never know? But dreamers, they saw things. If a woman dreams of building a home she does not own, it is good. She has known that place. If a man dreams of holding a child who calls him by the wrong name, it is good. He has loved before. It wasn't just reincarnation, it was emotional memory. You remembered how something felt, even if you didn't remember why. And sometimes those feelings turned into visits. There are multiple reports of dreamers being approached by strangers in dreams figures who speak cryptically, deliver advice, or offer protection only to vanish and never appear again. Some priests believe these were aspects of the self-remnants of previous lives checking in. Not ghosts, not gods, just you. wearing an older face. There's a beautiful entry. If he dreams of being led by the hand through a city of stars, and the guide wears his face, he is close to knowing. Fringe priests took this further. They believed the Biya could choose to return if the soul wasn't complete. That sometimes, if your name wasn't remembered, if your story wasn't finished, if you died in confusion or violence or deep longing, you might try again. And dreams were your first clue, which explains why some dreams felt so real. Not like visions, not like symbols, but like memories replaying themselves through unfamiliar architecture. One dreamer wrote of seeing herself on a boat she never boarded, wearing clothes she never owned, crying over a child she never birthed, and waking with a grief that stayed for days. She brought the dream to a priest. He listened, then said only, "You are remembering something not meant to be forgotten." No answers, no solution, just acknowledgement. Some temples even developed a ritual for dream recall, a process involving fasting, recitation, and sleeping beside flowing water to summon echoes. Dreamers would bring symbols from their sleep drawings, words, gestures, and the priest would compare them to ancient records. Looking for matches? Did your dream resemble a flood dream from 300 years ago? Did your symbol appear in another story? Were you part of something larger? It wasn't about proof. It was about connection. Of course, not everyone was thrilled about the idea of past lives. "If I've done this before," one dreamer reportedly said, "then why am I still so bad at it?" Valid point. Others feared these dreams, believing that to remember meant they had unfinished business, and that the gods might be giving them one more chance, or a final warning. If he dreams of a familiar place turning to ash, it is bad. He has failed once before. But if the place burns, and he plants something in the ashes, that's different. Redemption wasn't just possible, it was expected. Dreaming of past selves often coincided with major life decisions. New careers, new homes, births, deaths. Times when the soul might be choosing again. Some even claim that children's dreams were more truthful, untainted by adult logic. It was said that kids often spoke of places they'd never been, people they never met, and fears that didn't belong to them. If a child dreams of drowning in a dry place, ask what name he calls for. One story tells of a girl who wept upon seeing a temple she had never visited. "I lived here," she said. "I left something behind." The priest gave her a lotus. She placed it at the altar and stopped weeping. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or maybe some dreams aren't dreams at all. They're fragments. Repeats. Second chances wrapped in mist. So tonight, if you dream of something strange but familiar, if you walk a road you never built, if you love someone who doesn't recognize you, don't panic. Just listen. You might not be dreaming for the first time. You might be dreaming your way back. You dream of standing in front of a mirror made of polished bronze. You reach out to touch it, and your reflection reaches back first. Not in mimicry, but in awareness. It tilts its head before you do. It blinks when you don't. And just as you begin to speak, it mouths your name and says, "I know." Then you wake up. Your skin prickles, not in fear, in curiosity. Because this wasn't just a dream of symbols or omens. It was a dream of identity. The ancient Egyptians knew that some dreams didn't warn, didn't predict, didn't comfort, they uncovered. They held up a mirror to the soul, asking you not to look outward, but inward. Dreams of self-revelation, of things you weren't ready to admit by daylight, but that your roaming soul decided you were finally ready to face. These were called naked dreams. Not because you were literally unclothed in them, although that did happen. And we'll get to that, but because they stripped you of your public mask. your status, your excuses, just you, face to face with you. And they were often the most powerful dreams of all. If a man dreams of arguing with himself, it is good. He sees the truth beneath his words. This wasn't poetic exaggeration. Some dreams literally depicted double selves, two versions of the dreamer, facing off, sometimes fighting, sometimes teaching, sometimes watching in silent judgment. These dreams were believed to be confrontations between the Ka and the Bi, between body and soul, truth and pretense, and they were not always comfortable. If he dreams of being naked in a room full of statues, it is good. He cannot lie. Not to others, not to himself. Nudity in dreams was a potent symbol. It didn't mean shame. It meant vulnerability, exposure, the inability to hide. To dream of standing bare before gods or ancestors was often a sign that your spiritual self was ready to be examined, or was being examined already. One dreamer described being stripped of his name in a dream. Not his clothes, his name. He wandered a city of stone, calling out, but no one saw him. When he awoke, he reportedly made 3 separate offerings: bread, incense, and a copper mirror to reclaim what he had forgotten. Name in Egypt meant identity. Without it, the soul was lost, erased. So when your dream self forgets your name, or speaks a name that isn't yours, that means something. One French priest wrote, "If the soul speaks another name in dream, he remembers who he was before or who he may yet be." That blurring between past and future self was seen as a powerful spiritual crossroads. And what about mirrors? Oh, the mirror dreams. If you saw yourself in a mirror and looked different, younger, older, sickly, glowing, each version meant something. A glowing face suggested favor from the gods. A shadowed one, hidden guilt. A face you didn't recognize at all. That could mean you were being asked to change or that you already had. If he sees a stranger in the mirror who does not speak, it is bad. The gods are waiting for his decision. But what if the reflection spoke back? That was something more. Some consider these dreams divine dialogues, messages from the deeper self. Others believe they were warnings that your soul had strayed too far from Mayat, the universal order, the solution, reflection, confession, realignment. Temple rituals for self-discovery were not uncommon. Dreamers would fast and sleep in complete darkness, hoping to see themselves clearly in the black. These rituals were sometimes followed by confessions spoken aloud to the gods, or written and burned. I have spoken more than I knew. I have envied. I have hidden. I now uncover myself. It was spiritual therapy, and dreams were the therapist. Some dreams were gentle. If a woman dreams of planting a tree and sees herself sitting in its shade, it is good. She has become who she is meant to be. Others were harsher. If a man dreams of being chased by his own voice, it is bad. He runs from his truth. These dreams didn't need translation. You knew when they arrived. They echoed. They stuck. They didn't offer symbols. They offered clarity like a bell ringing in a silent hall. And they were often followed by change. Dreamers would return to the temple days later, not for another interpretation, but to make vows, to act, to leave a job, return to a family, end a feud, or begin a journey. Because sometimes a dream didn't show you the future. It showed you the choice. One papyrus fragment recounts the dream of a scribe who stood before 2 roads, one lined with gold, the other with bones. He chose neither, just stood there. The priest said nothing. A week later, he resigned his position, packed his scrolls, and left the city. No one knows what became of him. But someone etched on his old bench, he found the third road, and that's the heart of these dreams, not to frighten, not to flatter, but to reveal. So tonight, if you dream of yourself not as you wish to be, but as you are, don't turn away. If you find yourself arguing with a version of you who knows too much, listen. If you wake feeling seen, even haunted, don't run. The gods aren't punishing you. They're showing you what you need to become. You wake up with a word on your tongue, a word you've never heard before. It echoes in your skull like a drum wrapped in linen. It sounds like it belongs on a temple wall, etched in gold leaf, spoken only when the stars align and the incense burns just right. And yet, you spoke it, in a dream, clear as the morning bell, and now it lingers. In ancient Egypt, this kind of dream wasn't just memorable, it was magical. Because in a land where writing was sacred, and speech was considered a force that shaped the cosmos, dreaming of words, especially unknown or powerful ones, meant you had brushed against the edge of creation itself. Let's talk about the language of dreams. Egyptians believed that the world was created through speech. The god Ptah, in one tradition, brought the world into being not by shaping clay or wielding lightning, but by speaking. Words had power. Words were power. That's why scribes weren't just bureaucrats, they were magicians of ink. And if you spoke in your dream, or if someone else did clearly, distinctly, meaningfully, that was considered a direct message. If a man dreams of a lion speaking his name, it is good. He is protected by truth. If he dreams of writing without hands, it is good. His words are blessed. But most intriguing were dreams of unknown words. You'd wake up repeating them, sometimes just a syllable, sometimes a full phrase. Scribes would scramble to write them down. Priests would search archives for similar combinations. Sometimes they matched divine epithets, names of gods known only to a few. Other times, they resembled fringe spells used in funerary rites or forgotten hymns. And sometimes they matched nothing. These were called the words between realms spoken by gods, dream spirits, or the bay of someone long dead. If you could remember them, if you could speak them again while awake, it was believed you might gain access to secret knowledge, or invoke divine favor, or open something. Of course, the danger was that some words weren't meant to be spoken twice. If a man repeats a name he does not know, he may call something he cannot send away. Yikes! So temples treated these dreams carefully. You'd report the word to a scribe. He'd write it down phonetically, along with the dream context time, moon phase, direction of sleep, offerings made, etc. A priest might chant the word softly, listening for resonance. If it sounded too much like a name of power, a true name of a god, it would be sealed in a scroll and buried. Too risky to use. But if it sounded like a blessing, that word might end up in a protective charm, or etched onto a new statue. Dreamers sometimes became channels, unintentionally transmitting divine language. One young novice at a temple reportedly dreamed of a white ibis that spoke a word into his ear, then vanished. He awoke and spoke the word aloud only once. The priest who heard it reportedly fell into a trance and dictated a 14-line hymn to Thoth. The hymn is still partially preserved. The word lost. There were also stories of dreamers writing symbols in their sleep. Not full hieroglyphs, but strange characters, some backwards, some distorted. These were treated like prophetic script, and often paired with dream incubation rituals to encourage further visions. If a man dreams of drawing on sand with fire, it is good. He carries the voice of the gods. More puzzling were dreams of silence. If a god appeared and did not speak, that was rarely good. Silence in a dream could mean judgment, withholding, or that you were being asked to listen not to the god, but to yourself. If he dreams of being spoken to but cannot hear, it is bad. He is not yet ready. But some priests offered a gentler interpretation. When the gods speak in silence, they speak in certainty. In other words, sometimes silence wasn't absence. It was wait. Still, most dreamers preferred words, especially the lucky few who dreamed of hearing their own true name. The Egyptians believed that your Ren, your name, was part of your soul. To hear it from a god's lips, even in sleep, was considered one of the highest blessings. It meant your essence had been seen, recognized, and preserved. One dreamer claimed that Anubis appeared to him in sleep, pressed a hand to his chest, and whispered a name he had never heard. Upon waking, he adopted it as a spiritual name, carved it into a pendant, and claimed he never had nightmares again. Another tale tells of a scribe who dreamed of Thoth unrolling a scroll, pointing to a single word and saying, "This is your path." The word stillness. The scribe resigned his position that week and became a gardener at the temple. He never wrote again, but his garden flourished for 20 years. Locals called him the Quiet One. He never revealed the rest of the dream, because some words aren't for sharing. So how did priests handle dreams with spoken messages? Carefully. They classified dream speech into categories: instruction, clear guidance, go to the temple, tell her the truth, the river is not safe. Prophecy, vague, poetic statements. The snake will arise where the fig once grew. Naming, hearing your own name or someone else's. Invocation, words that sounded like spells, songs, or keys. Unspoken echo, where you don't remember the words, but wake up knowing something new. The last one was hardest to explain. You couldn't describe the dream, but you were different afterward, and everyone knew it. So tonight, if you dream in language you don't recognize, if a stranger in gold whispers something that wakes you in a cold sweat, if your lips move before your thoughts do, listen. Say the word softly, once, then write it down, because you might have just borrowed a syllable from the gods. And words, they always echo somewhere. You walk through a long hallway made of night, not darkness night. Stars flicker in the floor tiles. Constellations shimmer along the walls. At the end, a door swings open. Inside, you see yourself not as you are, not as you were, but as someone, whole, still, unburdened. Then you wake up, but the stillness lingers. You've reached the final type of dream the ancient Egyptians revered, not the prophecy, not the nightmare, not the divine message or soul memory, but the completion dream. The dream that doesn't ask, doesn't warn, doesn't instruct. It simply is. Completion dreams were rare, even in their day. Not many were recorded, but those that were carried a tone of reverence that made even high priest pause. Because when someone dreamed of perfect balance, a state of inner peace, outer calm, and spiritual clarity, it meant something had clicked. A circle had closed. If a man dreams of drinking cool water beneath a tree, it is good. He is aligned. No mystery, no flaming goats, no cryptic birds, just peace. These dreams came most often after periods of upheaval, a family loss, a long illness, a change of heart. Sometimes they followed months of troubling dreams, the ones that wake you sweating, make you question yourself, force you into the uncomfortable act of growing. And then suddenly they stop, and the dream is still. One dreamer recounted seeing herself walking into a garden, lying down, and watching the moon turn into a flower. That was it. She woke with tears, happy ones. Another dreamed of sailing upriver without wind, without oars, the boat moving as if by thought. I had nothing to do, he wrote, And I knew that was right. Historians interpret these dreams as signs of psychological integration, a mind reconciling its chaos. The Egyptians saw them as evidence that the dreamer had touched Ma'at, not just cosmic balance, but personal harmony. If a man dreams of reaching a city with no name, it is good. He has arrived. Completion dreams often had certain features. A lack of conflict. Gentle repetition waves, footsteps, music. Muted color palettes, blues, golds, deep reds. A feeling of being watched, but never judged. And sometimes nothing happened at all. One priest recorded a dream where a woman walked into a blank room, sat down, and remained still until she woke. I knew everything, she told him. And I didn't need to say it. The dream was marked as perfect. There were even temple rituals designed to invite such dreams. You'd fast for 3 days. You'd sleep with your head pointed toward the setting sun. You'd recite the same phrase as you drifted off. Let me see the face I will wear forever. And if your dream brought stillness, or light, or a return to somewhere you'd never been, you'd leave a stone at the temple gate. No words, just a marker. One stone among hundreds. A silent admission I saw it too. These dreams weren't always peaceful in appearance. Sometimes, they showed the dreamer in impossible places beneath the sea, inside the sky, walking upside down. But the feeling was always the same. It is done. I understand. I am enough. For those lucky enough to experience this, interpretation wasn't necessary. The dream said nothing. And yet, the dreamer woke knowing exactly what to do. Forgive. Let go. Speak the truth. Take the next step. Some even change their names after a completion dream. Adopted simpler lives, or just smiled more. One scribe, after a long life of interpreting dreams for others, finally had one of his own. In it, he returned to his childhood home, only to find it empty, silent, warm. He sat in the middle of the floor and simply breathed. He never recorded the dream. But the next day, he retired. No fanfare, just peace. And what of those who never had such dreams? They didn't envy, they aspired. Completion dreams were not earned. They weren't rewards. They were invitations, glimpses of what was possible, proof that beneath the noise and dust of daily life, a core of quiet clarity waited for all of us. So tonight, if your dream brings no message, no warning, no prophecy, if you see light, or stillness, or just the face of someone you love, smiling at you from a place that asks for nothing, let it be. Don't search for meaning. You've already found it. And now, with your mind soft and your eyes heavy, let the final thoughts drift gently across the surface of your thoughts like reeds on the Nile. You've traveled through centuries of dreaming minds, ordinary farmers, high priests, scribes with shaking hands, and wide-eyed children whispering of stars. You've felt fear, wonder, curiosity, and maybe, if you listen closely, a little piece of yourself in each dream. There's no need to remember it all. Dreams are meant to fade, like incense rising. They carry their messages in the space between words. So breathe in deeply now. Let your body melt into the stillness around you. The air is warm. The world is quiet. The gods are watching but not judging. They simply wait, as they always have. You don't have to ask anything of the night. Just rest. Let your ka wander. Let your ba soar. And when you return hours from now, in the hush of morning, you might find yourself just a little more whole. Sleep well, dreamer. You're exactly where you need to be.